I think of your model and I think of the hands on the wheel kind of metaphor with it. And when you get to that autonomous level, maybe it's not autonomous all the time, but it's autonomous when it matters. Like, I've got your back. I'm your agent. I'm your gifting agent, your shopping agent. I know Mother's Day is coming up. I know you want to be involved in your wife's Mother's Day gift, but maybe for your mom or for your aunt, send her flowers every year. Just take that off your plate. I've got you. That's kind of the spirit that we're going for, and even within our tool, its specific buying journey might have a different level of autonomy possible. Like, I want to approve every single purchase, or I want to delegate this completely to you. I think that's definitely where the future is headed.
Welcome to the Retailgenic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retailgenic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new Agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retailgenic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scott Wingo.
Welcome to the Retailgenic podcast. On the pod so far, we've interviewed thought leaders, founders of agentic payment companies, and today we're starting the first in a series where we interview founders building interesting startups in the agentic space. I'm excited to welcome Kyle Montgomery to the pod. Kyle has over 10 years experience in the e-commerce industry. He works for retailers, then for agencies working on the Demandware platform that became the Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Most recently, he was at Estound Digital as SVP of Commerce, where he led the agency's go-to-market strategy for Salesforce Commerce, Shopify, Adobe Commerce, and the Mock Alliance Commerce solutions across retail, consumer goods, healthcare, and travel. Like many founders, Kyle had an acute pain point that wasn't solved by anything. That was the kernel of his idea and inspired him to found Generous. He's an uncle 20 times over. I am an only child, and I find that kind of crazy, so I don't understand that pain point, but I can imagine that's a lot of nieces and nephews. I'll pause there so you can hear directly from Kyle how that was the kernel of an idea that led him to found Generous. Now, here is my conversation with Kyle Montgomery, founder of Generous, an agentic gifting platform. Enjoy. Hey, Kyle, welcome to the Retailgenic podcast.
Thank you, Scott. I'm very excited and honored to be here. Big fan. I've caught every episode so far.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're a regular, long-time watcher, first-time guest.
First-time caller. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see you reached out we connected on LinkedIn, and it was interesting to see your background. Tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey so far.
Sure. Well, I'm very new in the entrepreneurial space. I'm a first-time founder, and I went full-time on it just some months ago, just in Q1 of this year, 2025. So brand new, following in footsteps of giants such as yourself, who are many-time founders and with successful exits, and hope to have some of that same success. Up until now, I've been on the customer side in technology in general, and then was many years as a consultant. Spent some time at Accenture, spent some time at Fluid, which was a very interesting company that did a little bit of product, including AI agents before generative AI, before it was cool, with customers like the North Face and 1-800-Flowers doing some agentic commerce type things. So I've been exposed to this nearly 10 years ago. But I wasn't part of that team building that. I was on the other side. I was on the agency side of Fluid, where we were building e-commerce websites for clients on a platform called Demandware. And Fluid was then split up. Some of the product was sold to IBM and the IBM Watson team. And then some of the company was sold to Estound Digital. I stayed at Estound Digital until just earlier this year. Kind of moved up some of the ranks there and was last SVP of Commerce at Estound Digital when I left.
So if we think about normal functional areas, were you more product, go to market, operations? Like how would you kind of, if we had to pigeonhole you, where were you pigeonholed?
I certainly started as a, part of the delivery team, went from developer to architect, and from there found some success in kind of the go-to-market and helping our salespeople, pitch our services, leading teams. I was a manager of developers from the early days. I was director of development at Fluid, and VP and SVP at Estound. So leading those delivery teams and helping sell deals so that the team stayed busy. And that meant I had to keep close to the technology. The technology was always evolving. Of course, Demandware was acquired by Salesforce. It became Salesforce Commerce Cloud. We also started doing a lot of Shopify work. Before Shopify really hit the enterprise scene, or is trying to hit the enterprise scene, we were also doing some Magento, some Hybris, some others. And while I wasn't hands-on with Magento or Hybris, I was managing developers and architects who were. So staying apprised of all of those different trends and different technology shifts was an important part of my job, to speak to both customers and my colleagues, my team members.
Cool. And then so SVP of Commerce, that mean you ran the commerce division of, and I imagine that was was a multi-vertical agency of some kind, and you were kind of running the commerce piece. Is that right?
Yeah, if there was a delivery service where we were developing, a customer's vision on top of Salesforce Commerce Cloud or on top of Shopify, the foundation of that work was on the developers and architects, of which I had responsibility. Making sure we were following all of the different processes and best practices that we espouse. And we had a really good reputation. Our biggest market was certainly in Demandware and then Salesforce, but our reputation was really good for well documented code, good responsive team around the world. And we were big enough at around 1,000 people at Estound to compete and win against the Accentures and Deloittes of the world, but also to kind of have that boutique feel, which was a strength of ours.
How about Publicis? Did you kick their butt?
Probably. I'm sure we went up against them more than once.
Okay.
But yeah.
My other podcast co-host is a guy at Publicis, so I have to always rub that in. So you've been working for companies that are pretty big. You're kind of an employee, and then you decided to take the entrepreneurial plunge. What is that something you always wanted to do, or walk me through that thinking?
It's a great question. I'm not sure it was something I always wanted to do. I know I had an idea for Generous, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, but the pain I had personally is what started this entrepreneurial idea, and that seed was planted and it just nurtured and grew over time. I've had this idea for many years, and it comes from my personal life. I'm an uncle 20 times over.
Holy cow.
I know.
Right.
I have 6 siblings, and then I also, of course, got married. And so my wife's 3 nieces and nephews add to that, but most of it's on my family side, certainly, the 6 siblings. And I've always wanted some way to handle and manage the communication I have with them on their birthdays and on Christmas. And why isn't there an app I can subscribe to? But just even send them a greeting card every single one of their birthdays. That was the pain that started it all. That was the seed that was planted. And then just consuming kind of startup material. I read The Lean Startup. That was a seminal book that, of all the books I've read, probably Lean Startup had the most direct impact on my life so far, especially if this is successful, because it really inspired me to build something, ship something, get customer feedback, and pivot. Where before I read that book, I was probably just paralyzed and thought, well, I have an idea, but I don't have the money to build it. How can I possibly build it? How can I, forego a salary right now? I have a family. So it gave me some courage, certainly, to give this a shot. And I'm all of 4 months in full time so far. So we will see how it goes.
So these things kind of like they gestate, right? So you had this idea. I imagine you're given the time frame we're in, you're kind of using some of the vibe coding platforms for like the cursors and Replit and all that kind of stuff. And then how long before you kind of like, I'm sure you were working at your job and kind of like thinking about this, maybe working on it on the side or whatever. And then where did you get to that point where you're like, all right, I'm going to do this? Obviously 4 months ago, but like what was the signal that you kind of knew?
That is a great question, because it was not an easy decision, and it was, over time. Technically, I founded this company part-time in August of 2024, so almost 1 year ago, and I was working on it part-time. I let my company know, Estound, that I had this side project. I was obligated to do that, and so I did. and then shared with them that I wanted to move part time, and I moved to part time for about 3 or 4 months before giving them notice that I wanted to pursue this full time. Really, it came down to the fact that when I founded it in August, I thought I can keep my full time job and I can work on this on nights and weekends. I should have known better. I already work nights and weekends. I'm already working more than 40 hours a week as a
Yeah.
leader of a consultancy, with high stakes pitches, and we need this RFP response by Friday, and it's Wednesday. There was already midnight oil burning, and I didn't have a lot of time to put into this other project. So eventually, I just decided to move full time on it.
You've kind of hinted. Let's jump in. Tell us. So the name of the company is Generous, and tell us what you're building.
We are building an agentic shopping application, a web app for users to manage gifting. And we're starting on the consumer market and on the personal side. So my use case is one of the first. I kind of think of myself as the ideal customer profile, ICP, a busy parent, a busy millennial, maybe, plus or minus an age demographic that wants some way to get better gift ideas and to never miss another gift again. And through my research of interviewing dozens, maybe even hundreds of consumers and retailers, we know there are a lot of problems around gifting. It's not just forgetting a nephew's birthday. People find it stressful. 30% of products bought during the holidays are returned to retailers. Consumers say that it's really hard to find gifts for people. And now AI is here, and well, why couldn't that help with us with this series of issues? So that's our hypothesis, and that's what we're building, a vertical shopping agent to help you pick a great gift for your family and to manage all of that.
Yeah, just did a post. So in the Adobe data, they said 35% of people that use Gen AI for commerce oriented things do it for finding unique products and or finding gifts. So the behavior is starting to happen. Like there's definitely, you're not alone.
Yeah, and I think one of your first guests was Michelle Grant from Salesforce, wasn't it? Wasn't she? And I think she even said on your podcast that in their consumer survey, the number one use case that at least from that qualitative survey response kind of data, the number one use case was gifting. Why would you use an AI agent to help you shop? The number one use case was gifting. So that that was exciting to hear these kind of studies. It's exciting to get that kind of um, social proof that what we're building might have some interest and might be able to find product market fit. That's the dream, right? So there's interest.
Yeah, and while the agents are good at that, they're not going to remember, who you're gifting for, what you've bought them, and they're not set up to remind you to kind of like do a like a teaser, like or a poke to say, hey, remember, with 20 you've got one you know every 2 weeks kind of happening.
Just
So
about, yeah.
there's probably some clustering in there that gets really complicated. So yeah. So walk us through a user scenario. So I'm going to go. I've got a set of 2 or 3 people I'm going to buy gifts for. How do I approach your platform?
The onboarding part of it is really interesting to us because we're trying to provide some optionality while also providing a guided experience. So there are people like me who have a ton of people they want to get gifts to, but not everyone has 20 family members. Maybe you're only interested in 3 to 5. So we're giving you the option. One feature we're working on is, or it's already built, is our contact syncing. So whether you log in via Google or Apple, and in the future Facebook and a friends list, we can sync your contacts, and you can choose every step of the way which of these contacts you actually want Generous to know about and to provide recommended gifts for. Also, just a really focused experience if you have a specific gift event in mind. So say Mother's Day is coming up and I need to get my wife and my mom and my sister something, kind of an event-based journey. Let's check all the boxes and make sure you're fulfilling all your obligations as a gentleman this Mother's Day to all the important mothers in your life, and kind of going about it the event-based approach instead of the person-based approach.
What do I have to tell your platform about those folks? So I have a niece that's 14. Do I need to tell you all that information? And then it seems like the more context I give you, the better gift recommendations you're going to make. So how much context but then you don't want the customer to have to fill out 80 forms before you can make a recommendation. So another tricky thing to navigate. I've been on your side of on this equation.
And that's why we're excited to launch. Like we're still building, and per lean startup, we need to get something in customers' hands and get their feedback and pivot appropriately. So what we're building right now is a light survey, kind of a one pager, where you are suggested some hobbies at this person based on what we know about it so far. It's a niece, 14 years old. Are they into this, or that? Click the bubbles. But it's also free form generative AI chat. You can just chat with your agent who's going to help you with this gift and have a natural language conversation about what this person might like. But one feature we're also working on, and this is kind of stemming inspired by corporate gifting platforms, which we will also target that corporate gifting angle, is also reaching out to the recipient directly as well. If you're okay with it as the gifter, you can even say, reach out to this niece if they're 13 or older. You don't want to go against child online privacy rules and all of that. But if they're of an appropriate age, reach out to them, reach out to whoever the recipient is, mom, wife, etc. Generous, or I'm sorry, the email might say, your friend, your relative, Scott, would like to give you a great gift. Can you let me know a little bit more about yourself too? He's filled out some information, but why don't you onboard yourself? And our hypothesis is, of course, that will also provide some virality, and that recipient might convert to gifter and start using the product as well.
So at that point, it kind of like could be almost like a wish list. Like, so now they may have a wish list that they're going to share with the agent. And we've avoided the problem of how do I know what, nephew number 18 has or does not have.
And those kind of tools exist. There are universal wish lists out there. But for me, and other surveys show, it just feels awkward to kind of publish to your family, here's what I want. Like everybody buy me something. That's just not the way we work socially.
And sometimes kids these days have them, but they're always changing platforms. They're like, here's my locker. And I'm like, what's a locker? Oh, forget that. I'm over on Pinterest now. Okay, I know that one. No, it's actually on my, insert, some other company number 3.
Right.
TikTok shop list, or
Right.
there's a million things you got to chase.
If they're invited from somebody who already is showing that intent to give, it's a more socially acceptable dynamic to say, well, yeah, here's what I want, or even share with them a publicly available wish list. Here's a link to my Amazon wish list. Get inspired AI by the types of gifts and the type of brands that I like.
So I like this flow where we tend to buy things where we go through a research phase and we narrow it down to a SKU or two. Then we go through a find phase. We're kind of like, all right, let me see what's available and what price. And as the gifter, I want to, I have a budget and that kind of thing. Um, then and then the buy. So research, find, buy. I'm very fond of those 3 words. And so now we kind of get into the find mode. How do you help me at that point?
What we're building right now, at least our MVP and our beta, is purely agentic. And some of our early retail partners who have signed on have asked us this question pointedly. So there's no search page, there's no listing page of all the products you have. What if I want to see that? Well, we're going to ship without that and see how it is to have a purely agentic shopping experience where you need to go through a chat to get more ideas. The agent might send you 3, it might send you 10. There are product cards right there natively within the chat. Give it feedback, say, no, give me more suggestions. And we're gonna see how people react to this kind of thing. Will we one day have a typical e-commerce shopping listing page and a search bar on top? Who knows? Maybe. I want to put this out in front of customers first and see how they react and see what that buying funnel looks like if there isn't a shop page, even for the humans.
Cool. So I'm going to see some product cards, and then I will say, okay, I think product number 4 is the one that we're going to go with, and then walk me into the buy process. Are you actually going to agentically go and purchase that?
Yes, sir. So the place order button is right there within the chat. We've saved your credit card information during onboarding, or if we haven't at this point, you're invited to do it. It's actually all API based, and it is kind of a checkout in a marketplace solution, which I think you talked with the Magento co-founder on a previous podcast. Kind of, I think you should call it the obvious choice. Like that's obvious. If we're building an agentic marketplace, just own your own checkout. That's exactly what we were already doing, and it put a smile on my face to hear that on your podcast a few weeks ago.
By the time your podcast comes out, we'll have one of the agentic payment companies out, so you may have to share some notes with them. Yeah, there's lots of questions. I won't go into implementation details because that's your secret sauce. But they're I know you know this, but for listeners and viewers, that's a hard nut to crack. So congrats on being able to make that so easy for people. I'm sure you spent a fair amount of time on that.
It's a trade-off. So we're choosing to make payments easy by adopting a marketplace model, but it's opt-in. We don't have the whole catalog of the internet at our disposal in order to support that. We have retail partners who have signed contracts and signed up for our commission rates, and we're opting them into that, which is the friction we'll have to. That's the burden that we have to place, that we have to overcome now, is getting those retailers to sign up and say, yes, I want to sell my products on Generous because you've shown that you have the users that are willing to do that. So on our side, it made it really easy. I mean, we're using just a pretty basic payment provider, a well-known one, and one that supports a marketplace model where we collect our commissions and settle with the retailers.
Okay, so at that point we're in a marketplace kind of mode. Got it. Okay, awesome. So then you started this. Have you raised capital at this point?
We have. We are in our pre-seed round right now, and so that is active and still ongoing.
And is it so far just you working on this, or the pre-seed round is kind of there so you can start building out the team a little bit more, type of a thing?
We already have a team. We have myself and a co-founder. While I do have a technical background, I do have a CTO who's co-founded the company with me. Also have some founding advisors who I've worked with, and all told, the four of us, while they're very part-time, they're advisors. We have over 4 decades of e-commerce experience among the four of us. So pretty excited about that, and augmenting that with some contractors as well.
So the URL is generous.ai.
No, sir. It's meetgenerous.com.
That's right. Yes. Meetgenerous.com. And then can I go sign up for a wait list, and then you'll let me know when you've launched? You guys have something like that yet?
Yes, we have a wait list there. We are getting ready to launch our beta soon. So you can go to meetgenerous.com. You can sign up. It should be really easy. It just asks for your email. You'll get 1 or 2 welcome emails until we're really ready to launch, and then you'll get notified when the beta is coming. So yeah, definitely invite people to sign up. Roughly 1,000 people on the wait list by the time this podcast comes out, I would expect.
And then is there a way to jump the wait list by sharing and getting more people on the wait list? Do you have that kind of gamification going?
We do. So share with your friends and you'll jump the wait list for sure.
When you say beta coming soon, is that like Q3 or by the end of the year, or like in the next year?
I expect it to be by Q3 of this year. So that's what we're definitely aiming for. Our beta will be
Clock is
focused.
ticking.
Yeah, it is. Our beta will be focused on gift cards. So we're building a marketplace, and it's always hard to have that, the two sides of the marketplace. How do we attract consumers? How do we attract retail brands to sell? Well, since we're dealing with gifts, we have entered into a partnership, and we're also discussing a second partnership as well that has allowed us access to hundreds of brand gift cards. So, brands like 1-800-Flowers or Home Depot and things like that. So for our beta, we're just going to support gift cards and get user feedback on the experience, on the onboarding experience, on the recipient onboarding experience, on the AI. And we want you to help us train our AI, of course. This kind of vertical agentic experience, we need that user feedback from both the gifter and the recipient. How was this gift? Did this meet your expectations? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Help us train our AI model, and that will, hopefully attract a lot of users, and then attract more retailers. That's our go-to-market hypothesis.
Yeah, I'm a marketplace. I love marketplaces. Have you read The Cold Start Problem?
I've read about The Cold Start Problem, but if that's a book, I've not read the book.
That needs to be on your bookshelf next to the Lean Startup. So that'll be my gift to you, as for being on the podcast. We'll send me your address after, and I'll as one entrepreneur to another, I want to make sure you have that book. So I'll shoot. I've gifted that book to many people, and it's a good one, and it's very appropriate for what you do.
I think it describes my problem, the cold startup problem for marketplaces. Yes,
it's a whole book about your problem and how to solve it. So yeah, I think you're going to love it.
I can't wait to read it. I don't know if I can wait for you to send it to me now. Thank you.
Yep, I know a Seattle-based store that's pretty good, getting things pretty quickly. So we'll see. So thanks for sharing that about Generous. Let's pop up a level. And you've been in e-commerce for a while. What do you think? Like 10 years e-commerce?
Close to 15 now.
15. All right, good. So we have kind of like similar, long in the tooth in the e-commerce world. What do you think? So you read Retailgenic and you saw my 5 levels of autonomous agents. What do you think about that framework? Does that kind of pencil with how you think about the broader topic of agentic commerce?
It does in many ways. I think I even left a LinkedIn comment on one of your posts publicly about it. There are some nuanced conversations to have, but I love the idea of a framework. And I think the way you shared it was this models the autonomous vehicle framework of different levels of autonomous vehicles. How autonomous can our gifting get? I pulled it up ahead of our podcast recording, and I have it over here on this other monitor. But I think, um, from stages 1, 2, and 3, which is research, find, buy, your namesake, I don't have very many notes, and I think it gets really complex, and we're going to figure it out when it comes to levels 4 and 5, which is that advanced buy and full autonomy. There's a lot of nuance there.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Roy and now you kind of this idea of, do we stay in this agentic mode where the transaction's happening on the website, or does it get pulled up into the whatever the buying experience is, to be more seamless? Which obviously is a path you've taken as a startup with a little hyper vertical focus. Um, I think the bigger engines, the horizontal engines, end up doing it for the economics. There's kind of a slide that's leaked of OpenAI's projected revenue, and it kind of shows a smaller bar, which for you and I is a huge bar, but that's the subscription revenue. And there's this even bigger section that's like, future revenue sources. And if I'm kind of Sam Altman, I'm like, that's a really big bucket I've got to fill. And what are some big kind of honeypots I can go get my hands into? And the Amazon slash eBay slash Walmart marketplace revenue stream is huge. Startups like Miracle and even ChannelAdvisor Rhythm, there's lots of activity there that you could tap into, and you don't have to get too much of it to be a big number.
I find it really interesting in the context of generous too, because gifting is personal. Do I want to let an agent do all the gifting for me? Isn't that almost inhuman? Our first core value at Generous is humanity. We want to make sure every decision we make is to nurture human connection. So we're trying not to keep the human out of the loop. We're trying to keep the human in the loop, but also just be a helpful assistant. Think of like an executive assistant back, or like in the movies, like a trope. I don't know if you've watched Iron Man, but Tony Stark, he has Pepper before they, became married. She was her assistant, and it was her birthday or something in one of the movies, and you got me a nice dress. Oh yeah, it was a very nice dress, Tony. Thank you for the gift that you got me, but really she bought herself. That's kind of the spirit of Generous in a way. And I think about that when
He,
I think
he had Jarvis all along. Why didn't he get Jarvis to do it?
that's a good question. Didn't think about that one. That's a plot hole. Um, I think of your I think of your model, and I think of the hands on the wheel kind of metaphor with it. And when you get to that autonomous level, maybe it's not autonomous all the time, but it's autonomous when it matters. Like, I've got your back. I'm your agent. I'm your gifting agent, your shopping agent. I know Mother's Day is coming up. I know you want to be involved in your wife's Mother's Day gift, but maybe for your mom or for your aunt, send her flowers every year. Just take that off your plate. I've got you. That's kind of the spirit that we're going for. And even within our tool, a specific buying journey might have a different level of autonomy possible. Like, I want to approve every single purchase, or I want to delegate this completely to you. I think that's definitely where the future is headed. Another partner in the Salesforce space and in other spaces, Dentsu, Merkle and Dentsu, they predict that by 2030, 25% of transactions in the consumer space, e-commerce transaction in the consumer space, will be delegated to AI. So if that's true, we're only 5 years from that, and so these agents have a lot of work to do, and we're hoping part of that equation.
Yeah. And then, as someone that worked for and partnered with like the Demandware slash Salesforce Commerce Cloud platform, Magento, and all these different platforms, it was probably shocking for you to hear Roy Rubin kind of one of the founders of Magento, theorize that there's going to be these brands that go direct to consumer and don't have a website. And then, so that has a lot of downstream implications. Number one, that's kind of wild. Like, do these websites just kind of atrophy, and they're, maybe there's a small percent of people that look at them, but mostly they're agents kind of bouncing around doing things. And then, what do you think happens to all the supporting tech stack that's been built over, you and I have played a role in, and we know really well, does that even need to be there anymore? What do you think about all that?
As innovative and trailblazing as it might be to start one's own company, I still maybe struggle with that. What does 10 years from now look like? I really can't imagine $1 billion retail brand without a website, unless they're doing 10 billion and the 1 billion of it is agentic. I still think there's going to be a majority of human shopping, but I do think that retailers and merchants now and brands right now need to adopt their websites, adopt their infrastructure, and adopt their marketplaces, knowing that in a growing percent of purchases are being delegated to AI. It's small right now, it's single digit probably, but it's going to get double digit before the end of this decade. And so if you're not adopting your website and other parts of your infrastructure and just your brand in general to be able to accept payments from an agent, you're going to be losing out to other brands who are. So that's the technology precipice that we're on right now. That generative AI is introducing as we get into e-commerce, and I think that percentage will grow over time.
In agency circles, is this like a topic, or they're so heads down implementing things that it's not really on their radar? Or is this something, because you could see agencies are good at pivoting, so I could see they're going to need to help their clients with this type of a thing, just the same as, like, implementing a cool new feature or a whole new website kind of thing. Are agencies like thinking about this, or where are they on that kind of thinking curve?
Absolutely, Estound was, and I think other agencies are as well. We frankly see it as an opportunity. Like, there's a new technology, and you need help. We can help, of course, but it's real too. I think since OpenAI and ChatGPT hit the scene and hit the zeitgeist, um, I think just about every QBR I had with one of our clients, every customer advisory board we had quarterly with several of our clients, AI was a dominant topic. If it didn't consume 50% of that meeting, it was the exception, not the rule. So our customers, retailers, brands, and merchants, they want to talk about AI. They want to hear from us what their competitors are doing with AI. They want to hear what Salesforce is doing. Is Agentforce real? What is Shopify doing? What is NCP? What does it mean to me? They needed our help digesting that, synthesizing that, and it behooved us to be able to synthesize that for them. So that was certainly a big part of my job in my role the last 2 years. And I think the agencies have largely adopted that consultative approach. Also internally as well, like if there are vibe coding tools, excuse me, what does that mean for developer shops in the future? That's an existential question that I think every agency and every SI is asking themselves right now, and is a really interesting question.
You could do vibe agencying. It doesn't roll off the tongue as much as vibe coding.
It will eventually, probably. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I think agentic commerce is really cool. I have a lot of ambition with Generous to be part of that equation, and I hope consumers will consider, trying it out, trying to give a gift with an agent's help. Maybe the recipient will like it more, maybe the gifter will like it more, and then um, see where it goes from there. And but just overall, I'm supportive of the whole ecosystem, supportive of what you're doing, Scott, with Refi Buy, following what you're building. I'm on your wait list. I think there's also a social media aspect of it. Maybe I need to share it to bump up your wait list as well. But thank you for this opportunity, and excited to be part of this agentic commerce movement and in this ecosystem.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check back maybe Q1 of next year after you've kind of launched and been through a holiday season. We'll kind of get you back on and see if you survived, and you'll have some fun stories to tell. I also know from Channel Advisor, you've kind of lashed yourself onto every holiday being stressful for you now. So, so your last Valentine's Day will probably be your best. Your Easter, like all the holiday calendar, is going to be crazy for you going forward. So, I'm sure you realize you signed up for that, but I don't envy you that part of what you've signed up for.
Oh, well, we're just going to focus on making it easier for everyone else. We'll take on that burden to make it easier for everyone else around the holidays. Yeah.
Kyle, thanks for joining us. If people want to follow you, I've seen you're active on LinkedIn, so that's easy. It's just Kyle Montgomery. We'll put a link in the show notes so folks can follow you on LinkedIn. Any other places you share thought leadership?
LinkedIn is the most prominent. I'm once in a former life blogged about the Denver Broncos, had a kind of a big Twitter following. I let that account kind of die over time, for lack of a better word, but I'm kind of resurrecting it now in this context. So I'm also on Twitter at kmonty7, but the LinkedIn Kyle Montgomery is the best place to find me for sure.
Gotcha. And for the wait list, it's meetgenerous.com.
Meetgenerous.com. You got it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for joining us. And we'll check back in with you in the first quarter of 2026.
Thank you, Scott.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgenic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.